You're probably sitting alone right now, holding a quiet drink after a long, exhausting shift. You take a slow sip, staring at the amber liquid in your glass, just waiting for the stress to finally fade away. But if you go back 10 million years, this comforting drink did not exist at all, making our modern habit a complete anomaly in the history of nature. Imagine a wild, silent world where your ancestors crawled through dense forests, running from predators, completely driven by the brutal fight for raw survival. They had no warm bars, no chemical escapes, and no easy ways to numbing the daily pain of life. So how did we go from that harsh reality to settling down and building the world we live in today? The answer will completely change everything you think you know about human evolution, our modern mental health, and the true meaning of civilization. To find out, we have to follow a trail of crumbs left deep in our biology. Let us look back at the very beginning of the human story. Long before we built cities, our ancestors were just small primates trying to survive in ancient Africa. In 2014, a biologist at UC Berkeley named Robert Dudley published a groundbreaking study called The Drunken Monkey. His research showed that millions of years ago, survival was a brutal game of finding calories fast. When sweet, ripe fruit fell from trees and sat on the warm forest floor, natural yeast got inside it. This yeast started breaking down the sugars, causing a natural process called fermentation. This process produced small amounts of a chemical we all know today as ethanol. To a hungry primate, the strong smell of ethanol was a powerful signal that meant food was nearby. Our ancestors followed that scent, ate the fallen fruit, and got a massive boost of energy. But they also got something else, a tiny strange buzz in their brains that made them feel safe and warm. Over millions of years, we did not just tolerate this chemical. Our bodies actually evolved a special gene to process it faster than other animals. We developed a biological craving for it because it helped us stay alive in a dangerous world. But there is a massive gap between picking up rotten fruit and actually making your own drinks. For a long time, mainstream history told us a simple story. The story said that humans grew smart, invented farming, built stable villages, and then discovered how to ferment things. We believed that civilization came first, and alcohol was just a fun little treat we made after we settled down. But in 2018, a team of archaeologists shattered that belief into pieces. They were excavating a cold limestone cave called Rakafet, located near Haifa, Israel. This cave was used 13,000 years ago by an ancient group of people known as the Natufians. Inside the dark cave, scientists found deep stone mortars carved directly into the hard bedrock. When they used advanced chemical testing to analyze the tiny residue left inside those stone bowls, they found a shocker. They discovered unmistakable traces of starch and wild barley that had been soaked, germinated, and left to ferment. It was beer, brewed inside a dark cave 13,000 years ago. This discovery completely flipped the timeline of human history. You see, the Natufians were not farmers at all. They did not know how to grow crops, they had no gardens, and they did not plant fields. They were still wild nomads wandering the landscape, hunting animals, and gathering whatever wild plants they could find. They did not even have permanent homes to sleep in. Yet, these primitive people spent their precious time and energy figure out how to brew beer in stone bowls. They pushed through the daily struggle of survival just to make a drink that could alter their minds. If you think a cave brewery is wild, the story gets even stranger just 1,000 years later. In the hills of southeastern Turkey, there is a massive, mysterious archaeological site called Göbekli Tepe. Around 12,000 years ago, groups of nomadic hunter-gatherers came together to build something unbelievable. They carved giant stone pillars, some weighing more than 10 tons, and decorated them with beautiful images of wild animals. They arranged these massive rocks into perfect, careful circles on top of a barren mountain. This was built thousands of years before anyone invented pottery, before writing, and before anyone settled down. For decades, historians could not explain why nomadic people would work themselves to bone to move 10-ton stones up a steep hill. What could possibly motivate hundreds of wild wanderers to cooperate and build such a massive monument? The answer lay hidden in the dirt at the bottom of the site. Archaeologists dug up giant limestone vats that could hold up to 40 gallons of liquid. When they ran chemical tests on the ancient stone walls of those vats, they found the exact residue of fermented grain. Göbekli Tepe was not a town where people lived, slept, and raised families. It was a massive ancient festival site. People traveled from miles away, carrying heavy stones just to gather, perform sacred rituals, and drink beer together. This brings us to a mind-blowing theory that turns our understanding of human progress upside down. An archaeobotanist named Patrick McGovern, who is the leading expert on ancient alcohol, has spent decades arguing a radical point. He claims that humans did not start farming because they wanted to make bread. They started farming because they desperately wanted a steady supply of beer. When you look at the actual work involved, his argument makes total sense. Think about bread for a second. To make a single loaf of bread, you have to harvest the wild grain, grind it into fine flour, mix it with water, knead it for hours, and bake it over an intense fire. It is a long, tedious, boring chore that gives you very little joy. Beer is incredibly simple. You just put the grain in a tub of water, leave it alone for a few days, and let nature do the work. If you were a tired, stressed hunter-gatherer living a harsh life, what would motivate you more? A dry piece of bread to fill your stomach, or a warm, bubbly drink that can ease your anxiety and bring you closer to your tribe? The desire to feel good was a much stronger motivator than the desire to eat grain in a slightly different way. By the time we reached the year 7000 BCE, this ancient craft became incredibly precise. In a Neolithic village called Jiahu in central China, archaeologists dug up ancient pottery jars. When they looked at the chemicals inside, they did not find a crude accidental drink. They found traces of a complex blend made of rice wild honey grapes and hawthorn berries. These people were mixing different ingredients with real intent and skill to create the perfect flavor and buzz. Thousands of years later, when ancient Egypt rose to power, this drink became the literal fuel of their entire society. The thousands of laborers who dragged massive limestone blocks under the burning sun to build the Great Pyramids were not paid in coins. They were paid in beer, getting about 4 to 5 liters of it every single day. That was their actual paycheck, and it kept them alive because the water from the Nile River was muddy and full of deadly bacteria. The boiling and fermentation process of brewing made the beer clean and safe to drink. It gave them necessary calories, acted as a life-saving water filter, and kept them calm. Every single piece of evidence points to the same undeniable truth. We did not just discover this drink along the way. We chased it across continents, built monuments for it, and completely changed how we lived just to keep it close. So what does all of this actually mean for us today? We love to tell ourselves a beautiful story about human progress and how we built the modern world. We like to believe that our ancestors grew smart, developed deep philosophies, organized complex societies, and then invented alcohol as a fun little reward for their hard work. But the objective truth is much wilder, and it flips our entire understanding of history completely upside down. Civilization itself was not the creator of our desire to drink, but rather, civilization is a direct side effect of our ancient desire to alter our minds. We did not build this massive complex world and then start drinking to cope with it. We built this complex world because we were absolutely desperate for a place where we could settle down, feel safe, and drink together. Think about the staggering compromise our ancestors chose to make. Before we invented agriculture, human beings were completely free. We wandered the earth, worked only a few hours a day, enjoyed a varied diet, and answered to no one. But we traded that perfect freedom away for something else. We chose to bend our backs under a burning sun, break our knees in the dirt, and till the soil for the rest of time. We built heavy walls, invented taxes, and set up rigid social classes that trapped us in a cycle of endless labor. Why did we agree to step into that heavy prison? Because it was the only way to guarantee that the crops would grow, the stone vats would stay full, and the escape would never run out. We broke our own freedom and built the modern system just to protect our favorite way to disconnect. So let us bring this incredible 10 million year journey right back to your living room tonight. When you look at the glass in your hand, you should not see it as a personal failure, a modern vice, or a sign of weakness. Instead, see it as an ancient mirror that reflects the deep history of our shared survival. The exhaustion you feel after your long workday, the anxiety of trying to fit into a demanding society, and the heavy weight of modern expectations are simply the price of the civilization we built. We created a fast-punishing world that our ancient biology was never designed to handle. And when we try to quiet that constant background noise with a simple drink, we are just using the exact same emotional tool our ancestors used. You are sharing a quiet, vulnerable moment across time with the primate on the forest floor, the nomad brewing in the cave, and the tired laborer who raised the pyramids. If this perspective brought you a little bit of peace tonight, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us keep exploring these deep human stories, finding comfort and understanding in our shared past. Thank you for sitting with us by the fire. Take care of yourself, and we will see you next time.